Hi, I'm Cindy Cloward with Riley Blake Designs, and today I'm going to be talking about how to create the Lots of Dots quilt. Now, this is a fun quilt pattern that was introduced in 2013 by Holt. Uses our circle rulers. Here's her original quilt in her vintage inspired fabrics, and I love it. It's so much fun. But I wanted to show you an updated version of a current fabric collection. So you can use a vintage prints or you can try something new. This is a fabric collection designed by Sue Daly and Gabriella Nill, and it's called Abby, and it features some wonderful novelty prints of a little girl. And we have a lot of novelty prints at Riley Blake Designs, and this pattern is perfect for fussy cutting them. So you can see the quilt back here. Uses a lot of the circle rulers, but in the center of each of these large circle is the fussy cut images of Abby. And it's a fun quilt that you can make into a juvenile quilt. Again, you can use traditional fabrics and make a traditional quilt, but this is a great quilt to make for a little girl or someone who's young because it's the perfect size. So let me start by telling you to go to it's a 60 by 60 inch quilt size, so a good size quilt, but not extra large. You can go to our website and download the pattern. We will be updating the image, and it is called Lots of Dots pattern. And this is what it looks like. It comes in 4 pages, so you can download that. I'm going to move this out of the way. Again, this is Lori's fun quilt. Fabric requirements on there. It doesn't specifically say to use a pre-cut, but I use the pre-cut in my quilt. So it's not a bad idea to grab a pre-cut. Has all the different fabrics. You will need extra fabrics for the border, this stop border right here, and the outer border. So I use those 2 extra fabrics. And then if you want to do any fussy cutting, you can see that when you get like your 10-inch stacker, I'm going to just take this off. You can fussy cut, but you're not going to have all the images because they're random. So you're going to probably need extra fabric if you're going to fussy cut. So I'm going to take these out of here. Okay. So the instructions for the quilt, again, are a free download. You just need the templates. Here are the circle ruler templates. And it shows a picture of the quilt on the front to remind you that there is a free pattern. There's 4 different templates. Pull them all out. Put that down here. You're going to need all 4 templates to make your quilt. I'm going to move this over here. So you can read the pattern and it'll tell you how many different shapes you'll need to cut out, and you'll need the sew-in interfacing. And it comes in package, and this is Holt approved interfacing. It's just what you need. And then you're going to take out the interfacing and you're going to draw your circle rulers. So for this large one, you need 9. So you need 9 shapes traced on here. For the smaller one, I don't remember exactly how many, but you can read on the pattern. You're going to trace those all at once. And I do all my tracing on the interfacing at once, even down to the little one. So grab your pre-cuts. This is a 10-inch stacker, and a lot of different fabric manufacturers make this size pre-cut. But make sure you measure it before you start cutting, and make sure it's a true 10-inch. And there's pinking on the sides, so you want to make sure where the pinking is. Is the pinking the very outer edge of the 10-inch, or do you have a little bit of space outside the pinking? So when I measured this, this is slightly bigger than an exact 10-inch. So when you sew and when you cut, keep that in mind because you want perfectly sized 5-inch squares. So you're going to cut up your pre-cuts or your regular yardage fabric into 5-inch squares and prepare those. Once you get all your 5-inch squares, you're going to make a 4 patch. And the way you assemble it is just sew 2 squares at a time, and then you're going to sew your 2 squares together to make a 4 patch. Now what you need to remember is you want contrast. You don't want everything to be monochromatic unless you like that. But if you notice here, it's fun to have a pop of color, a little black here, a little black here. Just be mindful when you go to assemble your quilt that all your blacks aren't together and that you put them in different parts of the quilt. So it's interesting, and you look at the quilt and you see different shades of color. So I've got my 4 patch done, and I've previously cut out all my large circles. So here's the interfacing. You can use a friction pen or a pencil, it doesn't matter. What you want to do now is make sure it's centered. So your circle is perfectly centered. And how I usually do that is I fold it in half and half again. And then once it's out like that and out like that, I'm going to grab a pin. And I pin it so it doesn't shift when I'm sewing. Now you're going to be sewing almost to the edge, because when you cut your squares up there, it comes right to the edge, but you got to have enough room. So what you need to make sure, you might have to do just a little adjusting, ever so slightly, that you don't go over your edge. There, and check it over there. Now this is just a repeat of Lori Holt's method. I'm going to take it to the machine and sew on the interfacing the entire way around, and you don't back stitch, you just go over where you started, so it kind of locks that stitch in. So I'm going to do that really quickly. Okay, I've sewed all the way around. I'm just going to check and make sure everything is in place, and I'm ready to trim. I did go, since it's a tight fit using the 5-inch squares, I did go slightly inside my marked line, and I'm just going to trim around this real quickly. If you have the fabric that you want to use, you can just use assorted fabrics to cut your squares, but I like using a pre-cut. And I love these scissors. They're dressmaker scissors, so they're always open. So those are a lot of fun. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna make a little X like you've seen us do before. Make sure you don't cut your fabric as you're doing that, just your interfacing. And there's the little circle, your large circle. I get that out and I just kind of lay this down, use the clover turning tool, and I just push out all my edges. So it's making that nice circle. And it's not going to be perfect, and that's what the tool's for, because you're working with fabric that's stretchable. You can mold it a little bit. If it's nearly perfect, you can mold that circle. Okay, looks like it's ready. I'm going to take it over to the ironing board and press. We've got our new mister here. I have a little starch in there. Love that product. So press that. You've got your perfect circle. Now it's ready to applique, but you can do your centers first. So I've prepared the other blocks so you can see what it looks like. These haven't been pressed yet. So for each one of the 9 large circles, you get to put a medium-sized circle in each of it, and that's the 4-inch circle. So that goes in the center, and again, that's perfect for fussy cutting. All the fun little motifs. For this 6-inch size, you need a little small 2-inch circle in the center of that. I think there's 16 of those you need to prepare, and each one of them has a little circle in there. Again, same thing that you've done for the previous ones. You do your interfacing and then stitch it on. I did want to just show how easy it is to fussy cut this. You've got your bolts of fabric, and once you've got your interfacing, there's a little bit sheer, so you can just put it right on there and know exactly what your motif's going to look like underneath. Right there. All these little shapes. Isn't that fun? So I'll give these a little press. Doing it once, both of these together. Again, if there's like a little bumpy edge, you can just go back in and shape it just a little bit. Just get it how you want it. Cute. Okay, so like you did before, well, you don't have to fold this over because it's already marked in the center for you. So I fold this over again, like that. So we know that's our center. And so it's perfectly centered, ready to machine sew or applique. I do love Sue glue, Sue Daly's glue. That's your pins. So you can kind of, and it works like a pin. You don't lather it all over, you just put it where you'd put pins, or you can pin it down. And I do like to hand applique. Sometimes if I'm short on time, I will machine sew these on. And I use an invisible nylon thread, and that works pretty well. But my favorite method is to hand applique, and I change my colors as I applique around. Sometimes you can get away with a neutral color and do a lot of your colors, but if you've got your black, you're gonna wanna use black thread to applique. If you've got reds, pinks, blues, change out your threads because you will see it a little bit. And you can't even see where I hand appliqued. Okay, so after you've got all your circles made, it's time to put them on the background fabric. And that's a good time to lay them all at once to see where you want your colors. If you got your lights and darks, so they're all ready to go and you're not changing them after you have them sewn on your background fabric. So I do lay out all my blocks or my circles before I applique them onto my ground fabric. So I've done that already. I know which direction I want everything to go. I usually take a picture with my camera once I have it laid out, and now I'm ready to sew. And so when I'm done sewing, I can put them back out where I had them before, how they were perfectly laid out. So now I'm going to put this on my ground fabric, and it's really easy to do. Since I've already made my markings on the ground fabric, I've got my 4 patch. And I'm going to lay it on there and just line up those lines. And we're going to pretend that's already been appliqued on, because you do that first before you put on your block. Then you take your Sue Daly glue and you can use it as a pin. Just takes a minute to dry, or you can pin it down. I like to hand applique. Easy to take to the machine. You can do your zigzag stitch or a blanket stitch around. Invisible thread or a good coordinating thread works as well. And then after this is all done, you're ready to assemble your quilt. So come sew along with us, download the pattern, and get started.